Good afternoon. Welcome to Cohn and Krueger. I'm Grant Cohn. That's Larry Krueger. We're going to be here for the next hour talking 49ers. We watched the Super Bowl last night. I want to get Larry's takeaways. In fact, why don't we start there? We were so focused about the Eagles. It was really funny. Niners and Eagles were like chirping at each other the last 2 weeks. But it turns out the Chiefs are still a team to beat in the NFL. And that's where people need to focus. How to take down the Chiefs. The Eagles didn't have the magic formula, although they came close. What do you think the Niners have to do to beat the Chiefs?
You gotta do what they did this year, which is continue to add. You got to continue to add. It's almost like running through the ticker tape. You just got to keep making your team more explosive offensively and more dominant defensively. And it's really about focusing, I think, on players in mass and speed. So you got to add it. The Chiefs are the fastest team in football. And when the Niners and Chiefs played in the Super Bowl a couple years ago, they were 1-2 as far as the fastest teams in football. And I just think the 49ers need to look for speed more, and then they need to utilize their speed more. And like give you an example, I think they underutilized almost all of their speed this year. Womack didn't get enough run. Danny Gray didn't get enough run. Ray didn't get enough touches. The Chiefs were best against the Niners. I thought one of the best games I saw the Chiefs play all year was the game at Levi's. Why? Because Willie Gay, who runs sub 4.5, missed a ton of time this year, but he was healthy in that game. And if you go back to that game, I think he made like 9 tackles. And Nick Bolton is also, another guy. He's short. He's like 5'11", 6 feet. But he runs crazy 40 times, and he's incredibly instinctive. So those two guys are dominating speed guys. So to me, the name of the game is continue to add speed on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I like that very much. I also think the Niners need to change their mentality. I think they're so proud of their defense. It's all about defense with the Niners. We got the number 1 defense in the league. I think they got to stop thinking about stopping the Chiefs and be more focused on outscoring the Chiefs. I don't think you stop the Chiefs. The Niners played the Chiefs this year and gave up 44 points. And I think a lot of people say, well, a lot of Niners were hurt. Who was hurt for that game? Who missed that game on the Niners defense? Bosa was there. Armstead.
Armstead. Kinlaw.
Armstead and Kinlaw. Okay, so
maybe some other player that.
Emmanuel Mosley, but he wasn't coming back. So it was essentially their defense.
Charvarius was
he was there,
game, but I would say he was like 60%. He had the groin. He was not the same guy in that game.
Fair, but still 44 points. They eviscerated the 49ers. I still think maybe the Niners could hold them to 35, but I don't think you're really going to hold them to 21 or whatever the Niners normally hold offenses to, because they're so special in Kansas City. So I think the Niners need to be more focused on offense in general. We're going to talk about their focus on defense, but they added Drake Jackson and Charvarius Ward. Those were their 2 big additions last offseason. And special teams. I think they need to be more focused. I think Kyle thinks he's the star on offense. If you give him some skill players and a left tackle, he can take it the rest of the way. I don't know. Kansas City has a better offensive line than the Niners, and a better coach, and a better quarterback. So that's tough.
First of all, yeah. How long is Andy Reid going to stick around? Is he going to retire? Because he got. Grant, he got 2 second half touchdowns in the Super Bowl against one of the best defenses in pro football on broken plays, based on unbelievable play design and just understanding
that jet sweep thing. And
like the partial motion where he basically had guys just wide open.
It was amazing.
Wide open.
Schooled Jonathan Gannon. So what you got to do is not have Jonathan Gannon as your defensive core. I feel like he got exposed, and that's going to be an interesting thing with the Eagles next year is that guy. Because, his defense is so reliant on those 4 pass rushers doing everything for him. Once they don't get home, he doesn't really do much. Anyway,
Well, and the other thing that has to be looked at, Bill Barnwell pointed it out in his article today, is that teams pressure Mahomes a lot. Teams don't sack Mahomes. He's got the best ratio of being pressured to escape to sacks. It doesn't add up. You should sack Mahomes 4 or 5 more times, or they should have sacked him 4 or 5 more times than they did. They got 0 sacks because he gets away from pressure. So that, I mean, that's really, I mean, you'd rather not blitz.
Right.
He's really good against the blitz, but then if you blitz, you better get there. So I mean, it's just I think the way to beat Mahomes and the Chiefs is you have to pressure Mahomes, but you can't pressure Mahomes by blitzing and giving him defined reads because he's had too many reps. He knows where to go, and you have to make sure that when you do get home, when you do blitz, that you get home, because if he buys that extra time and sets a new platform, it's like it's a whole new play, and and there's tremendous pressure on your defense there, and he's so good at it. He's the best in the league at it.
But again, with the way I'm thinking is, I don't think the question is how do you stop Mahomes. You don't. You don't.
You're gonna have to score points.
Yeah, the question is how do you attack this Kansas City defense, because it's not great. They have two really great players, Chris Jones and Frank Clark. And the problem with them is when they go against the Niners, they can just put Chris Jones on Spencer Burford or whoever the center is, and Frank Clark on Mike McGlinchey, and that gives the Niners problems right there. You have strength on weakness. So if the Niners could just find a solution to Chris Jones and Frank Clark, they're in business against Kansas City. This is an offense that already was putting up 32 points per game down the stretch. If they can just make that right side of the offensive line as good as the left side, I think they could actually beat the Chiefs. They could go blow for blow with them. They might need a better quarterback than Brock Purdy. We'll see. No offense to Brock, but it's Patrick freaking Mahomes we're talking about.
I mean, when the Niners played the Chiefs, the Niners were an offense that scored about 20 a game. And they got beat, whatever it was, 40-17 or 20, whatever
23, it was. 44-23.
What did they wind up with? I think Purdy kind of showed that, he can be a leader of an offense that can go for 30 a game. But you're still not at 40 a game.
Right. So, which is what you're shooting for 40. You're shooting for 40 against Kansas City. Yeah.
And Purdy's got you at 30. So what's the solution? You got to go find your Isaiah Pacheco. You know what? The 49ers have George Kittle, who's a nice player at tight end, really strong inline blocker, somewhat dynamic. The rest of the guys are not dynamic. They need
they need another two. They need a number two tight end in the worst way. Sorry, they need a number two tight end in the worst way. Big time.
And either dynamic as a blocker or dynamic as a receiver. But right now they're not very dynamic there. And then they got to find a way to get Danny Gray on the field.
Yeah, I
mean, Danny Gray's a home run hitter, and Danny Gray's a good receiver. I mean, I know and rookie receivers struggle all over the league. It's not a Niner thing necessarily, but he's got to be. I believe in him. He's got to play. Ray's got to play. I actually think the personnel that they have is all right. If they could find a better, more dynamic tight end and beef up their O-line and make sure Purdy's healthy, and make sure that they have another backup quarterback. But I mean, I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, they definitely. I love the more speed suggestion. They used to have it. Mostert was underrated. Danny Gray is there.
Look at Pacheco.
Use him. But in addition to getting more speed, I think it's really important for the Niners to complete their offensive line. Because I feel like what Kyle thinks is he can scheme around it. Just give me a left tackle and a bunch of other guys who are inexpensive, and I'll work around it. Yeah, until you play the Chiefs or the Eagles or you get to the very end, I don't think you can do it and win a Super Bowl that way. The two teams in the Super Bowl had offensive lines that were freaking weapons. And the Niners offensive line, it's not a weapon. It's something that doesn't usually lose the game for them, but that's the most you can say for it.
It's an interesting discussion because Andrew Wiley on paper should have gotten abused, but didn't. And Orlando Brown, based on how he played much of this year, should have gotten abused, but didn't. And Hargrave should have had a lot of success, and he was shut down. And, so now, the Chiefs had a phenomenal game plan.
What's that left guard's name? Was it Thuney with T-H-U-N? How do you pronounce it?
Thuney.
He's great. And then Creed Humphrey's great. So that's helpful.
Creed Humphrey had a horrendous game, though, snapping to Mahomes. He probably hit him in the foot like 5 times. But they're also really well coached. Andy Heck, the former Notre Dame offensive lineman, is their coach. He's a phenomenal coach. And they're really, really good. I do agree with you. I think the 49ers need one more. Okay, Trent Williams is obviously a foundation piece.
Great.
I think Banks potentially can be a foundation piece.
After that,
I think they need a foundation piece somewhere on the center,
somewhere
to the right side.
Got it. Another one. Yeah. You got to have one.
And I mean, they have good depth now. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe it's a Nick Zakel. Maybe it's a Poe, Jason Poe, who looked really good in the preseason. He's kind of undersized. Maybe it's a spot where they have to trade up in the draft and find somebody. Maybe there isn't really that player in free agency. I mean, I wouldn't sign McGlinchey, but then looking at some of the other guys, I don't know that I would be in a rush to give Caleb McGarry what he deserves either. So they're in a tough spot there. I like Nick Allegretti from Kansas City, who is not starting for them, but is an academic. He's like a 46 Wonderlic. He's 26. He can play center, right guard, right tackle in a system that's used a lot of complex formations and formation variation and all kinds of different things. He's been in that system and can thrive, and he's probably available because their cap situation. So that's the guy I'd target. He's not really a monster, but he's really strong, really smart, and really versatile. And then maybe see if you can find somebody in the draft, or maybe sign a guy like Caleb McGarry. But I would definitely address the O-line a couple times this offseason.
All right. That leads me to my next question. Are the 49ers too invested in their defense? I mean, I couldn't help but notice that no freaking defense was played in the Super Bowl, and you had two elite offenses that neutralized pass rush, so easily, both through talent on their offensive line and excellent coaching and mobile quarterbacks. It's like there was no pass rush on the field. And these are teams with really, really highly paid, highly regarded pass rushers who were neutralized easily.
I mean, this is an awesome question, because the 49ers have really believed philosophically that it all starts with your defense. Even when
particularly the pass rush.
I mean, with their defensive line.
Yeah.
It all starts with your defensive line. When John Lynch had a chance to improve the secondary, he said, look at that Raider game from a few years ago. When we got pass rush, our DBs sure look better. So they're a real believer. If you make the quarterback move up front, you can get by on the back end with lesser players. But here's the question. Can you? I mean, Mahomes in the second half of this game, I looked this up. I read this today. The average, the ball got out in the first half at 2.93 seconds on average, which is still faster than the 3.47 or 3.74 that Purdy held it against the Eagles when he got knocked out. But in the second half, the ball came out on average from Mahomes' hand 2.46. If a quarterback,
and it's not just that. I mean, he's got rolling left, rolling right, half roll right. You never really know where he's going to set up and throw.
But I mean, look at the greatest quarterbacks in the last 15 years or whatever. Tom Brady gets the ball out fast. Aaron Rodgers got the ball out fast. Drew Brees gets the ball out fast. Now you got Mahomes getting it out in 2.5
These are the guys
seconds.
in the Super Bowl. Peyton Manning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love a D-line as well. And I believe in it as much as anybody. But it can be pretty neutralized. We just saw a 70-sack Eagle team. There's only two teams in the history of football, the Vikings with Millard and Dolman and Henry Thomas, and the 85 Bears, who have ever had more sacks than the Eagles had this year. And they got zero against Mahomes. And so I don't know. I mean, to me, I think what the real answer is you need impact players on defense with speed on all three levels of your defense, and there are no shortcuts. That's all I can take away from it. You're not going to be able to just say, we'll throw anybody in the secondary. No, you won't. And we'll just pile all kinds of money and draft picks into our D line, and we'll just be good. No, you won't.
No, because that's what the Niners did. They got a bunch of money in Eric Armstead. They're going to have a bunch of money tied up in Nick Bosa. That doesn't necessarily mean they have a great pass rush. The Chiefs have a bunch of money tied up in Chris Jones and Frank Clark. They think that's the right way to go about it. The Chiefs. And those guys were nowhere in this game, made no impact. So they got to ask this question too.
There's no guarantee.
Pretty soon they're going to have to pay Creed Humphrey. Are you going to let him go so you can keep paying Chris Jones? What are you going to do?
I mean, look at Kansas City, though. They've got two dominant players, two players on their front seven that have to be double teamed. Okay. Tremendous speed, as fast as the Niners, if not faster, at linebacker.
Oh, yeah.
And they've also injected their secondary with some big-time fast players. I mean, L'Jarius Sneed is hurt, but he's awesome. Thornhill is fast. I mean, they all their young corners, Joshua Williams, McDuffie, those guys all run well. So they have a lot of speed on all three levels of their defense. It's still kind of coming together. It's not a perfect defense, but you could fly around and make plays and match up and play man when you've got big time speed. And they do. So
another thing that Kansas City does differently than the Niners, Kansas City is much more cutthroat with who they extend. They are really cool saying goodbye to people like D Ford, see ya. Travarius Ward, thank you for your service. Tyreek Hill extended and then traded. It seems to me like their attitude is, man, who have they extended? Chris Jones, Frank Clark came from Seattle, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes. That's it. Yeah. If you are not one of those like crucial foundational players, we're not going to pay you. We're not going to pay you because we can't pay everyone. And the Niners try to pay everyone. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But at a certain point, you can't pay everyone. Something the Niners might think about with their extensions. They're expensive.
I think the Chiefs, if you want to say what's their philosophy, I think that they only extend players they truly feel are great. And if they don't feel like you're great, they don't extend you. Where I think the 49ers have a combination. They'll extend players they think are great, of course, but then they'll also extend players that they think they can get at a good deal.
Right. Armstead.
And it's like, who cares if you get a guy at a good deal if it just prevents you, if it clogs a roster spot from somebody who's potentially great?
Travarius Ward would be another example. Good player. Expensive. Chiefs said, you know what? We'll draft the guy. And he won't be as good as Travarius Ward, but he'll be a 20th of the price. And they won the Super Bowl because they're paying for they have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Take a couple questions and then we'll get back to our show. Modem Gamer says, done your taxes yet, Grant? No, not yet. I will. Give me time.
He's got plenty of time. I mean,
got time.
Got plenty of time.
Kyle needs to evolve play calling personnel ideology. Don't we all?
You do. Hey, the NFL is always changing. So always. It is a constant evolution. I think Absolutely. Kyle would agree with that.
Todd Labor says, hey, Grant, how was the Super Bowl? What was the weather like down in Arizona? I didn't go. Kidding. As soon as the Niners season ends, my season ends. I picked the Eagles to win. Go Niners and Commanders. Can't wait till the draft starts. I picked Todd, between us, the Chiefs won. Sorry to break it to you. I thought the Eagles would win too. All right, so here's the next question. Will the 49ers Super Bowl window close in 2024? I know you're thinking, crazy question. Sure, I'm not saying it will. But here's why I asked. I'm looking at overthecap.com, and these are going to be the Niners cap numbers for their top 8 players. And I guess there could be some extensions and some restructures. But as of now, Deebo Samuel's going to be making $28.5 million against the cap. Trent Williams, 28. Bosa's probably going to be at 25, 26, just based on where TJ Watt's at in his 6th year of his contract. Eric Armstead, 25.8. Fred Warner, 22.1. George Kittle, 19.8. Travarius Ward, 15.4. And Christian McCaffrey, $12 million. That's 8 players taking up $177 million. And next year, the cap's going to be $224. So I'm thinking 24, it'll be roughly $240. A little bit more than, but between $240 and $245. So, damn, that's like 3/4 of the cap tied up into 8 players. Eventually, you're going to have no depth left. Are you concerned?
Well, it's always a concern. I mean, for every team, it's a concern. I am concerned. But, the one thing the 49ers did this year is they added a lot of young players to the organization. And a lot of those guys, even though the fans don't know it yet, the Niners know they can play. They give you an example is they're going to let Azeez Al-Shaair walk. And they're going to replace him with Marcelino McCrary-Ball.
Who they just signed today.
Yeah, who they signed today. And McCrary-Ball is a baller. He is absolutely a player.
You called that, by the way. And they didn't give him an extension. Everyone was like, well, I guess, was Larry wrong? Boom, here's extension. Nope. Here it is.
Yeah, here it is. And it's separate from those guys. So what it really means is he got more.
Correct.
He probably got more than those guys.
As you pointed out.
But I mean, so he's nice, and he can run and hit. And he played corner at times in college, and obviously he played collegiate safety. And now he's had a year to adjust to their system. So they've got a few guys on their roster, kind of like that, who are players. And so they're kind of fortified against this year's free agents if some of these guys decide to walk, Aziz being one, even though I love Aziz, but Aziz himself was an undrafted free agent who's going to secure the bag in Houston, I would think. So yeah, I think it's here's the question. What's the window? Who's the window tied to? Most teams it's tied to your quarterback.
Right.
Well, if Brock Purdy is a flash in the pan, then the 49ers window might not even be open right now, to be honest, because they have no quarterback that's proven that they can win games with. If Brock Purdy
Bosa is going to be making quarterback money. Bosa is going to be making quarterback money. Eventually, he's going to get so expensive, it's going to get tricky to put together the roster they have now. I'm not saying don't pay Bosa, although I'm not saying pay him, because we just talked a minute ago about spending a lot of money on pass rushers. And look, the thing about Bosa is great player. But when he goes against the Chiefs, they can neutralize him. Something to think about.
Well,
Chiefs are going nowhere.
One of the things, Grant, that happened in this game to the Eagles is the Eagles shortened their D-line rotation and made their starters play a higher percentage of the snaps. And if you go back and look at the snaps, I think the Niners did kind of the similar thing later in the year. And I think that eventually that's kind of like, robbing Peter to pay Paul. There's a price to be paid for that. And what happens is your top guys, as you're featuring them more and more and playing them higher percentage of snaps, start giving you less production. And I think that's what we saw across the board from the Niner D line.
Yeah. I don't know what the Niners do here. I just feel like at a certain point they need to stop giving extensions to every single one of their players who's available. And you know what? I keep saying they got to re-sign Brandon Ayuk. I love Brandon Ayuk, but man, you can't give extensions to everyone. And I'm looking at the Chiefs. The Chiefs are the example of what to do in the league right now. They're cutthroat. They would not extend Brandon Ayuk. They probably wouldn't have extended Eric Armstead, Fred Warner. They would extend George Kittle. I want to say one thing about George Kittle. I said the Niners should trade him last year because I thought his body was breaking down. He stayed healthy for most of the year. This year had a great year. The Niners used him as a receiver. If you have a number one receiver who's a tight end, I feel like that's the number. It's a cheat code because they get paid less than wide receivers, and it's not fair. You know what I mean? Look at how dominant Gronkowski and Kelsey were in the salary cap era. It's not fair if you can have a tight end be your number one wide receiver like that. So Kittle, he can stick around. He's off the trade block officially. Sorry, George.
You're not trading him?
If he can stay healthy and Brock Purdy wants to throw it to him, then he's definitely worth the money. He's worth every penny. He is. Debo, on the other hand, $28 million for Debo in 2 years? That's terrifying. What is? That's terrifying. They got to figure that one out. Is he worth it? 28?
I just think you wait. You wait on that and see where it goes.
Sure.
See where his condition goes.
Because in 2023 he's only $8 million. He's okay.
Yeah. The Purdy thing is interesting from the standpoint of he loves to throw the tight end so much that if he's your guy, that's a spot you need another dynamic player. How great would the Niners be with Pitts? If they could add somebody like that, the Atlanta kid, or a big time player. I love Michael Mayer. If the kid out of Notre Dame in this draft, I mean, if they had a big time second tight end who had some speed, was dynamic, that would really help. I would love to see Purdy. I'd love to see Purdy throwing to that type of a player in this offense.
I mean, you could argue that a tight end who can be used as a receiver is the most valuable non-quarterback, non-offensive line asset in football on offense, because wide receivers and running backs are important, but you can find them. There's a million good running backs and there's a million good wide receivers, and they can be good at 22, 23. I feel like tight ends, how many guys can really get open and catch passes consistently? If you had two of them, remember when the Niners had Delaney Walker and Vernon Davis? Ooh, that was nice. Yeah. That was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and two tight end sets.
Two tight ends.
I mean, there were, he obviously became a nut job or was a nut job, but
I know where you're going with this. I was going to say it, and I was going to like, you know what? Let's not mention
Gronk and Aaron Hernandez.
I knew. Yeah, that was the other one. Yes, if you had two, having one, Kansas City has one, and that's enough. But if you have two, I'm with you because George Kittle has to block too much. He's a good blocker, but all the financial value is him catching passes, catching touchdowns. He can do it. Free him up, and get another one too because George's going to be 30.
By the way, Noah Gray, number 83, for those of you who watch the game so closely week to week, was blocking Hassan Reddick multiple times in this game.
I do feel he had a running back helping him, but also I want to say that Tyler Kroft, they should not re-sign Tyler Kroft. He went from inactive to blocking Hassan Reddick. He should have just stayed inactive. That's what I think. Ross Dwelly, the most disrespected 49ers ever? I don't know. We'll have to talk about that tomorrow. Dodge the bullet not getting Fangio as DC. Yeah, Fangio, thanks so much for your help. What was that? That was hilarious. He probably shouldn't have let that get out there.
What did he get for that?
He must have got, I don't know, a gold watch.
I bet you.
Set of steak knives.
What do you get to be a consultant for a few weeks on that level?
Oh,
you know,
he should have been like, I'm just kidding. I didn't. That was all Jonathan Gannon.
50K maybe.
Everything
100K?
I told him to. Yeah. What would it be for a week? 100K.
Your Vic,
2 weeks?
What does a week of Vic Fangio cost you these days?
Whew.
I'm saying at least
know.
50K.
All right, give me one free agent not on the 49ers that you think should be their priority to sign this offseason. Last year it was Charvarius Ward. That was their priority signing. They gave him, 15, 16 million a year? Big deal. Who do you think it should be this year?
All right, well, I've already stated that I think the way to beat Kansas City is to have dynamic defensive players who have speed and play fast on all three levels of your defense. So let's just say, for the sake of this conversation, that Armstead and Bosa give you that up front, that Warner and Greenlaw give you that on the second level. I'm looking for an impact guy in my secondary who is, can run and hit and make a huge impact in my secondary. And I'm taking CJ Gardner-Johnson away from the Eagles. That's the guy that I want. He can play the slot corner. He can play free safety. You have injuries, and guess what? You do have injuries. It's football. You can move that guy around. He can literally, he's like Jimmy Ward. He seriously is Jimmy Ward. He can play every spot in the secondary. He's a dog. The guy shows up. You saw that hit on Isaiah Pacheco. That was like Ronnie Lott against Ickey Woods. For those of you who are too young to have seen Ronnie Lott blow up Ickey Woods in Super Bowl 23, you saw it last night. That was it. It was CJ Gardner-Johnson on Isaiah Pacheco. He starched him. That's the guy they need. Bring back Jimmy Ward and go get that guy. And now you've got two alphas in your secondary who can run and hit and cover and set a tone. And that's what they need. They're a little, I like their secondary. I don't see animals back there. Just absolute guys who are just beasts who are just killers. They don't have killers. And CJ Gardner-Johnson's a killer. And so is Jimmy Ward. So that's what I want. I want Jimmy Ward back off the free agent list, and I want CJ Gardner-Johnson. Let one of them play free. Let one of them play the slot. Figure it out. And that's where I'm going. That's where I'm spending my money.
I like it. I like it very much. I'm focused on offensive line, though. We've been talking about defense being a little overrated. And I think the Niners, I'm looking at the offensive lineman here. I like Caleb McGarry. I think if the Niners could sign a big-time offensive tackle, they should do it. The only question is, can they afford it? They already have the most expensive offensive lineman in the league. Can they afford another high-priced offensive tackle, or do they have to splurge at another position? Because earlier in the show, we both agreed they could really use another very good player at one of those three spots, center, right guard, right tackle. They don't currently have that guy. So I don't care which one. But if they could get a guy at one of those spots, Caleb McGarry, is Jason Kelce going to be a free agent? Does he want to play for the 49ers? Could you do something like you got Alex Mack for a year? Could you get someone? Go get Jason Kelce. How about that?
I'll say
Why
this,
not?
though. It
looks like he's still got something in the tank.
I don't know if he's loyal to
Is he loyal to Philly or is he loyal to the Benjamins?
Yeah.
Them Blueface hundreds.
The only thing I'll say is Andrew Wiley, who just totally dominated in this game, was an undrafted guy. You did last year. Sure. You made it to the NFC Championship game, and you had Tom Compton and Dan Brunskill on the right side of your line. So I am a believer.
They folded in the fourth quarter, though.
They did. They folded.
And
maybe they're not good enough. Yeah. But
maybe.
Yeah. I'm just saying. And you do have some internal options as well.
You do.
Where is Nick Zakelj going to play? Where's Jalen? Is Jalen Moore a starter? Can Spencer Burford kick to right tackle?
That's a possibility.
Does CFO, Chris Forster believe that Burford's a right tackle? Then there's also what's the upside of Colton McKivitz? Can Colton McKivitz be a starting right tackle? Can Colton McKivitz be Andrew Wiley? That's what I'm saying. To me, is there a huge difference between Andrew Wiley and Colton McKivitz? I don't know.
But again, to your point, that you said three really good offensive linemen. The Chiefs this year had three. They had Orlando Brown, Tooney, however you pronounce his name, and
Tooney,
Creed Humphrey. Yeah, three elite offensive linemen. I don't know if you call Orlando Brown elite. He's also a free agent.
Well, he's a free agent. I mean, he supposedly, according to my buddy who's a Chiefs fan, he said he had kind of a lousy year, but they call him Zeus.
PFF had him at 75, which is okay.
Yeah.
It's better than anyone else in the Niners. I mean, 75 would have been the second best on the Niners. Not that I'm a huge PFF guy or anything.
Right. I mean, PFF on the O-line, I'll defer to them to some degree because they're watching it closer than I am, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Sometimes those grades don't make sense to me. I definitely think the Niners need to upgrade the offensive line, but I also think they've got some, unlike going into last year where they had very little quality depth, I think they do have some quality depth. I like Sakel. I like Poe. I like Moore.
I like their depth.
I like McKivitz. And some combination of those guys can still be on this roster, in my opinion. But they need a monster. They either need a monster right tackle or a center who's just, gives you a lot more power. I like Brendel. I think he's smart and I think he's quick. But
free agent.
He's a free agent. He was a Pro Bowl alternate.
It's going to make some money.
O-line players we've talked about many times, Grant, really bad around the league. I think McGlinchey and Brendel get priced beyond what Parag and the Niners want to pay, and I think they're both walking. That's my guess.
Perfect segue into my next topic. Let's stop talking about what we think the Niners should do, and let's try to make some projections.
Okay.
Do you think the 49ers will sign a right tackle? It could be McGlinchey, it could be someone else. Is this going to be a position they address in free agency?
Yes, absolutely. Because you don't have a first-round pick and you don't have a second-round pick. And I would say most years, the tackles that you could actually lean on to play as rookies are gone before you even pick for the first time in April's draft. Unless you wanted to parlay all your draft capital and get up into the back half of the first round and, maybe get a tackle. But, typically tackles are not there. I will say yes.
Oh, you're muted. I don't know what happened. You're muted. There you go.
I muted myself. I definitely think they'll go offensive tackle. I would say the guys the ones that interest me are Caleb McGarry from Atlanta, Andre Dillard from the Eagles, maybe Tom Compton, believe it or not, as just a stopgap guy, and Nick Allegretti from the Chiefs. I'll say this. All the offensive linemen in free agency are going to cost a lot. So you're going to have to overpay if you want the top guys. And I don't think it's really worth it. So I would probably try to see if I could find a couple, more middle of the list guys that are affordable that fit my scheme and see if you can coach them up. The emphasis has to be on intelligence though, because as you can talk to all the Niner offensive linemen, they're really intelligent guys, because in this scheme and to play like the Chiefs scheme, you really have to be a smart guy. And that's why Allegretti kind of interests me, because he was like a 46 Wonderlic and has played in a really complex system at a bunch of spots.
The Niners going to have to get creative at right tackle because, if McGlinchey is going to be expensive, then McGarry's going to be extremely expensive. And
I think McGlinchey's going to cost more, to be honest.
Okay. Well, they're both going to cost a lot. And the Niners already are paying a ton on Trent Williams, Eric Armstead, and soon to be Nick Bosa. That's three guys who are going to be making 25 plus, almost 30 average a year, 30 million an average on. Now you're going to add another guy making 22. What is McGlinchey going to get? 17, 18?
The Bears have 100 plus million in available cap room. Okay. There's a ton of Notre Dame people in Chicago. This would be a very popular move for them to sign Mike McGlinchey in Chicago. So I think McGlinchey gets a top of the scale tackle offer from the Bears. And I think he's going to outprice. I think he'll go to Chicago. I don't think the Niners have an ability to match. I don't.
Yeah.
And I think they fortified themselves with young players on the offensive line, knowing, Grant, that this day was coming and that they weren't going to be able to re-sign him. That's my guess. That'd be my guess.
Okay. I'm focused on the offensive line because I'm looking at what Philly had, and I'm thinking, take Trent Williams aside. Every single player on that Philly offensive line is better than the Niners offensive line. Every single one. But next year's going to be a different team. Let's go to center. What do you think the Niners' plan is at center? Did they draft Nick Zakelj to redshirt him a year, teach him how to take snaps, and insert him as a starter in year 2? Is that you think the plan is?
I think I don't know that Burford can play right tackle. This year, Burford shared time with Brunskill. It actually kind of worked well. I think Brunskill is another guy who's probably going to go away, but you never know. They've brought him back, and he might be cheap, compared to some of the other guys. But I think the way I see it, I think Zakelj could either start at center or he could share time with Burford at right guard.
Okay.
And he's ready to play. I think Zakelj is going to be a really nice player. He's physical. He's got a really strong punch. He's a really a tenacious, tough guy, and he's smart. So now you're going to get a year of weightlifting, learning the offense. I think Zakelj is going to show up in camp and really look like something. But don't forget also there's Poe, and Poe's an interesting player too. I mean, he's squatty and needs to get stronger, but he's pretty athletic. He's pretty fast. He's really athletic for that size.
Yeah. I don't want to just write off a player because he was a late round pick, because the Niners have had so much success with guys like this. But he was a redshirt guy. All I'm saying is, remember last year, Niners took Drake Jackson, and I said, yeah, I like the pick, but I think they should have taken Cam Jurgens. Remember I said that?
Yeah.
I was like,
Philly.
he's offensive lineman. He's going to play 100% of the snaps as opposed to this guy who's a situational pass rusher. And I don't know. We never saw Cam Jurgens play. He's going to be the starter next year. But that's kind of how I feel. They passed on Creed Humphrey. They could have had Cam Jurgens. And now, again, they're trying to get like Chris Forrester to make the most out of a guy who most teams didn't want. Like, he did it with Jake Brendel. And if he could do it with Nick Zakelj, great. But at certain points, I'm sure, like, if you were sitting down with Chris Forrester, who's quite candid, he would tell you he wouldn't mind a little more blue chip talent to work with. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Chris Kasarik is like supposed to be the greatest D-line coach of all time. They give him nothing but blue chip talent. How about Chris Forrester?
I mean, it's funny. McKittrick probably could have made the same claims back in the day. But I'll say this about Zakelj. He's 6'6". He's 315 pounds. Whew. He's not like he's just, and he's pretty good. He's pretty tough. So I like Nick Zakelj.
How many 6'6" centers are there? I mean, you could do it.
And then seriously, he's more of a right guard, I think, than a center.
Yeah. That's the thing. How many 6'6" centers are there? I'm interested in Poe. Of all because neither him or Zakelj have ever taken snaps, really. So Poe has that natural leverage. He's really strong. He's hard to move. That seems like I could see him being a good center. I don't know. I'm curious about Poe.
But it's funny. I interviewed Jason a couple times, and by the way, he's probably got one of the best personalities on the whole team. He's hilarious. It's funny. The guy is a really funny guy.
Too. Burford's funny too.
Burford's funny, but
Burford's funny too.
Man, Jason Poe, it's like he's guy's a character, but he's built like a center. He's 6'1", 300 pounds. Yeah. But I asked him. I said, "You played center?" He said, "No." He's played guard. He's played fullback. He's played other positions, but he hasn't played center. So, or at least hasn't played a lot of center. So, but I would imagine he's built perfectly for center. And if he wants to get on the field, I think center might be a spot.
All right, I got a final question for you. It's not a question. It's a demand. I'm putting you on the spot.
All right.
Give me one player that you think the 49ers should trade this offseason, knowing that they probably won't.
Knowing that they probably won't.
Well, whatever.
Well,
whether or not we expect it to happen, one thing you think they should do. Let's get crazy.
One player they should trade. I mean, it would be easy to say Javon Kinlaw.
I wasn't going to go that direction, but I can see. Obviously,
because you got Kalia Davis, you got Givens, I would say though, if I had to go one player that they would trade, it has to be a young player, obviously, that is just not a good fit, or for whatever reason it just hasn't worked out. I'll say Ambry Thomas. Fair. Even though they need corners, I could see them moving on from Ambry Thomas. Why? Because what's going on? I mean, what's the deal? I mean, Are you hurt? You're not getting better. You seemed like you had momentum. You're kind of a blue chip talent. He's almost 6 feet tall. He's about 190 pounds. He played at Michigan. He was a day 2 pick. There's people around the league that have high grades on him. He's not playing. So that's the guy for me. Ambry Thomas. I could see another team saying, hey, there's some value there. I would say that. The other one I could think of is, in Rand Carthon in Tennessee. I could see Rand Carthon coming to the 49ers and saying, what do you want for Juwan Jennings? Because Juwan Jennings is a guy who would sell tickets in Tennessee. He's that big of a name to the Vol Nation. They loved him there. I mean, it's crazy. And he's going to get paid at some point, and it's probably not going to be in San Francisco because of Ayuk and Debo and the other weapons they have. And they have some young receivers like Tay Martin coming up and Danny Gray and Ray. They've got some guys they could replace him with, and the receivers are loaded receiver draft. So I could see Rand Carthon wanting Juwan.
Those are good names. I was going a different direction. I was thinking more overpaid vet, guy who's good but can't really live up to the contract. And first I'm looking at Debo. But Debo is not expensive yet. His contract gets kind of gaudy in 2024. So we'll talk about him next year. Keep him one more year at least. Trent Williams, very expensive. Best left tackle in the league. He earns his contract. Fred Warner, very expensive. Best middle linebacker in the league. I think he earns his contract. George Kittle, I think he earns it. Eric Armstead, though. Eric Armstead missed half the season when he played. He had what? No sacks in the regular season, one in the playoffs. Very good run defender. Does generate pressures. Gonna be 30. He's gonna be making $23 million this year and $25 million next year, and then he's a free agent. But man, that's a whole lot of money. And I know it's not as simple as you trade him and you free up the cap space. What you could do is, if you trade him now, I think there'd still be like $21 million in dead cap. You could trade him post June 1 for another player. I'm not saying trade him for a draft pick just to free up. You could trade him for a player at another position. You could trade him for a pass rusher. You could trade him for an offensive lineman. You could trade him for a quarterback. I don't know. But of all the people, I feel like he's the most overpaid on the team. And it's no shot at him. It's the contract the Niners structured. But they backloaded it. Remember, they didn't want Buckner because Buckner wanted to get paid up front, I guess. And the Colts front-loaded that deal. Now, Armstead is significantly more expensive than DeForest Buckner. It's unfortunate, but that's what the Niners wanted. They felt they'd be winning Super Bowls over the last couple of years. He's backloaded. It's not palatable to me. $23 million for Eric Armstead. Not to my taste.
I think he's the restructure guy.
Can you do that without extending him, though?
I think they will. He's got ties to the area. They will. I think they will. He's 29. He's probably, if you made me come up with one person, I'd probably name him as far as the leader of the team in the room. I don't know. Maybe if I'm wrong, tell me who you think.
No, you're right. He definitely has that voice. But
I definitely think
he
like
just
the leader
missed
of the
half
team.
a season.
I know, but he also is. This is a guy who does. He's more than just a football player. I think to them, he's a leader in the room. He's the leader in the community, and I think he's from here, so I think he'll want to restructure. So I think he's a restructure candidate, which means extending him. I think they'll bring that number down and restructure him because they love him, and also I think that really he was let down by They went from Buckner to DJ to Kinlaw to they're taking steps back at that spot inside next to him. They need to go find their next Buckner, or they need to go find their next DJ. They defensive tackle and offensive tackle, I think, are the big question marks for the 49ers. And I just feel like when you think they're going to trade their other tackle, that would leave them defensive tackle less, right? Who's their starting? If they, Javon hasn't gotten it done and they got a problem there. Hassan Ridgeway's a free agent. Everybody else can be kind of moved around in the run game. The only guy that even anchors at all is Eric. I think that would be hugely risky to trade him.
I mean, I thought their defense didn't miss a beat when he was out. They were shutting teams down when Eric Armstead wasn't there. Like
they were also fresher.
You can find run defenders. Yeah, he's a great run defender. Great run defender. You can find run defenders. The Niners' run defense didn't fall apart without him. Well, for what he's making, he's got to be playing 16 games a year or at least 15. And I know he did for like 5 years in a row, to his credit, but he didn't last year. And you got to be a productive pass rusher. I'm sorry. They're paying you to get sacks. You have to. He's had 9.5 sacks since 2019. So that makes me wonder,
but
the team even want to trade for him?
Sack total. Here's the one thing about the sack total. You know and I know enough about football to know that a lot of times your sack total is totally predicated on who's in your cast. It's like a class project. It's a group deal. You know what I mean? Why is Hassan Reddick suddenly awesome where he wasn't so incredible with Arizona? You know, it's about those other guys as well. And if you're playing next to a guy who's not getting a whole lot done, it's harder for you to get more stuff done.
But I think if you're making $24 million a year, the guy next to you probably isn't going to be that great. Sorry.
But I mean, I think they need to. They've always thrown a lot of bodies at their D line. They need to go find more dynamic guys and put them with Bosa and Armstead, in my mind. But I would renegotiate him. I would, because I know he would be better if I could put a better cast around him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we were talking earlier, like, do you want to reconsider putting in a lot of money in how invested do you want to be in your defensive line? Well, pass rushers, I understand, but those guys can get neutralized. Run defense, you got to beat Patrick Mahomes, dude. Go back and watch that Super Bowl against the Chiefs. Tell me what Eric Armstead did in that game. I'd love to know. I still haven't figured it out.
There's one major problem that we haven't really talked about that the Niners have. The Eagles are absolutely unfucking stoppable in short yardage with their Jalen Hurts.
What is that? Holy shit!
That rugby scrum, and the Niners no longer are stout at the point of attack. No. They kissed off DJ Jones, and they can't stop the inside run. I think the Niners were like 20th in the league on short yardage runs up the middle. So either they're going to have no chance to beat the Eagles ever, or they better go address their defensive line, run stop unit up front. Because, I mean, seriously, if the Eagles get to 3rd and 4 or less, you just have no way to stop them. I mean, think about that. Puts an awful lot of pressure.
Also, they go for it on 4th down like every time. So what they do on 3rd and 4 is run it, and then they're in 4th and 1. It's impossible to stop them. They're a good team, man. It took everything Kansas City had to beat them. And still, if Jalen Hurts had just not fumbled and kicked the ball away, they probably would have won. That's what the razor-thin edge margin of victory was in that game. It was an interesting game. Not a great game because there was no defense.
Grant, could you imagine if there was a team that saw that and decided they were going to get just the biggest, most physical guard and center tandem, and then go no huddle, rugby scrum, 1st down, second down, 3rd down.
I'm telling you, that is a weapon. Down. That is a weapon, and it's Kelsey. It's not just Jalen Hurts. It's Kelsey. It's Dickerson. It's Sumalo. They have a huge offensive line.
How do you
Jake
stop
Brendel,
that?
I love you, but you want that. You want that. So go get those kind of guys who can move people around. And Kyle, stop being so freaking conservative. Go for it on 4th down. What are you afraid of?
Or how about this? Copy that.
Yes.
I want to see that next year. I want to see the Niners with Jason Poe and Juszczyk in the backfield.
Hell yeah.
And if Brock's the starter and Trey's
hoisting
the
him across,
then I want Trey to come running in onto the field on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1, or 4th and 2, whatever.
Yeah, it's funny.
And you get Trey and you get Poe and Juszczyk to push him, and you go sign a big, physical, dominant center, and you just uproot people and you just run straight ahead.
I like it. Because again, what the Eagles do is they throw on early downs and they run on 3rd down because they're going for it on 4th down. And on 3rd down, so many defenses are just instinctually grooved into, oh, here comes a pass. Here's my nickel, here's my pass rush. Here's my NASCAR unit. Here's my exotic blitz. Oh, nope, counter.
Well, how about this? Great. Anytime you're playing a team that only has 1-2 gapper, like, if you're playing like a team that has Jonathan Hankins, but that's it. And then like when he goes out, they don't have anybody who's that stout.
Run it.
Just go rugby scrum on 1st down, 2nd down, 3rd down.
Do it every
down.
Do it every time.
And
that would be so funny.
It'll be the worst thing of all time to watch. They have.
It just might work though.
I mean, it would work. I mean, you're telling me that 4 of those. I mean, I'd love to see on average how many yards did the Eagles gain on that rugby scrum play.
Yeah.
I would say I bet you anything. It's like 2.5 or 3 yards.
I bet you. There's a lot of times that they would get 3, and I think it'd be funny if they just came out in the game one time and did it 3 times in a row, just to be jerks.
Monster guys gets some 400-pound center and just.
I'm telling you, those 2 teams in the Super Bowl have centers who are freaking weapons, game changers at center. Niners got to get on that level, man. I want that.
Go pay
on my
Jason
team.
Kelsey.
I mean, the Niners had Richburg, who was good, not great. They had Alex Mack, who was at the end of his career. Come on,
Jeremy
go get a
Newberry,
serious center.
Remember when Newberry played center? They want a center
good.
like that, somebody who's like just a true horse.
Cal's finest, Randy Cross. Hey, when the Niners were winning Super Bowls, they had Randy freaking Cross at center. They were not messing around. Now, I never saw Randy Cross play. This was before my time. But he went to UCLA. Apparently, he was great.
He was good. Very good.
You know what's kind of weird? Universally regarded as the greatest teams of all time, those 80s Niners. How many of their offensive linemen are in the Hall of Fame? How come those guys get no credit for what happened? None of them.
Keith Fawnhorst, Fred Quillen, John Ayers. Yeah, nothing.
It's ridiculous.
Bubba Paris, Steve Wallace, Jesse Sapolu.
Yeah.
Nobody. I would say this.
How could they have won all those Super Bowls with no Hall of Famers in the offensive line?
The Niners voice that could bang the drum for their guys. It's like when Walsh passed, it's like there's nobody else who can stand up to the rest of the league and say, "Hey, what about this guy?" You know? Yeah. So it took Eddie D forever to get in.
Right.
You know, I mean, and then
Roger Craig's never going to get in, which is
Roger Craig, Seifert, Sapolu,
Seifert.
Michael Carter was awesome. I mean, there were several dominant players that aren't getting in. Keena.
John Wayne says disrespectful Eagle fans were taught a lesson in the art of humility as Eagles suffer a huge big game choke. Remember, the old song says everybody plays the fool sometimes, no exception to the rule.
It's a great song.
Thank you, John. I do feel like Niner fans kind of trying to troll Eagle fans is a little bit like Cowboys fans trolling Niner fans for losing to the Eagles. I'm just saying. That's how I feel. It's like...
Why? Because they didn't get there.
Yeah, they beat you.
My whole thing was just that sometimes you lose and sometimes you get screwed. And sometimes you get hurt. The Niners lost, but they didn't really lose because their quarterback went out. We really didn't get to see the game. So the Niners, and so all these people that banged on Debo and Robbie Gold and Ayuk and Kittle for just saying actually how they honestly felt, shame on you. Do you want these guys to lie to you and just tell you what you want to hear, or do you want guys to say, "Hey, no, we played them both. We think Kansas City's going to win. I think Kansas City." They were right. They were right. And I'm glad they spoke up. I'm glad the Niners, they got called whiners all week. I'm glad they stood up and said to everybody exactly how they felt, because that's how they felt.
I'm going to have to go and disagree with you on that one to be the guy from Office Space. No, I feel you, though. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I just disagree on that. But we don't have to argue about it.
What would you say it's over. You do here?
You do here. Yeah, whatever. Gents, great show. Are we drafting a quarterback? Yes. I think so. I think they freaking should. Why would you not?
I'll tell you this. I watched the Senior Bowl, and
give me a name.
Julie Hayner's kid.
That's Julie Hayner's kid.
Jake Hayner.
I had no idea.
That's Julie Hayner's kid.
Julie Hayner's kid. Yeah.
MVP of the Senior Bowl, and he's got zip on his passes, and he's kind of cocky. And I saw him a lot. Is he
Brock Purdy-esque?
With a better arm. I think he's got better arm strength. I don't know if he's.
What about his mobility?
He's not as quick as Brock, but he's very cocky. But I mean, this draft.
Well, he went to Monte Vista. I can imagine it. Sorry if he went to Monte Vista.
This draft is really interesting for if you want a quarterback. Tanner McKee out of Stanford, 6'6", 225, super accurate. He's going to be probably a day 3 pick. Jake Hayner. Remember this name, Clayton Tune for Houston. Is really good quarterback. And then the guy
he's kind of mobile.
I'm intrigued by Malik Cunningham from Louisville.
Okay.
Go watch him. It's only 6 feet, 188 pounds, but he's like Lamar as far as dynamic runner who can break tackles and throw. I mean, he's got a good.
Yeah.
You can absolutely throw from the pocket. So there's going to be some decent day 3 picks if you want to.
I liked watching Hendon Hooker. I mean, he beat Alabama, but he's going to be 25 and he tore his ACL. I mean,
and he had awesome receivers.
He had awesome receivers, so that's a tough one. Muid says they should sign Deron Payne this offseason. Yeah, but man, there's only so many defensive linemen you can give $20+ million a year to. Maybe you could do 3. I think 3 is a lot.
I'll give you a cheap one. Is the kid who played last night for Kansas City, Colin Saunders. You know, he chased that ball out to the sideline. He's 6 feet, 325 pounds. He can do backflips, and he's a whole lot cheaper than. I mean, he's not the awesome anchor against the run, but he's pretty quick, and he's a lot quicker than Javon. That's for sure.
Can I ask you about the backflip thing? That always comes out, and it's all, like Drake Jackson. He can do backflips. Are the players asked in their combine interviews, can you do backflip? Do backflip right now. We want to see. Do backflip. If you can do a backflip, we're going to take you a whole round earlier.
Well, no, who was it? I think was it Laken Tomlinson, or who was it that jumped out of a swimming pool in waist-deep water and landed on the deck? And
I mean, people have been doing that since I was in college. I think J.J. Watt did that when I was in college.
It shows unbelievable hip explosion.
It does. It does. Anyway, I
always
want to know.
You're going to see more of this stuff. Do you remember, your dad can tell you the story, when the Niners drafted Jim Druckenmiller, the Niners showed all the media people a video of Druckenmiller pulling a VW bus.
So stupid.
Up a hill.
So stupid. And with Jamarcus Russell, didn't he? Or was it Kyle Bowler? Which one of them?
Bowler from the knees?
From the knees at the 50-yard line through the. Yeah. Well, that is all you need to know.
Proof.
Forever says, sorry to break it to you. No one in the NFL is beating the Chiefs unless Mahomes is out. On an equal playing field, it's a wrap. Hard truth. Sorry. Yeah, that's that. We're approaching that level of the NFL right now where I don't know what you're supposed to do. They're a really well-built team. They got the best coach, the best quarterback, the best tight end, which might be the best weapon. And what more could you want? A really good offensive line. Yeah. I don't know what you do. The Eagles, to me, I picked the Eagles.
You got to blitz them with faster guys and get there faster, and then somehow. But you know what? It's not just Mahomes. It's the combination of Mahomes and Reed.
It is. And Kelsey. And Kelsey. Kelsey is freaking amazing. One of the best receivers of all time, I think.
One of the best route runners of all time.
Oh,
How about the play in the first half, Grant, where he looks like he's on the left side of the formation, looks like he's kind of a go pattern, gets in the middle of the field, cuts right. The defender cuts right with him. He flips around left, and he is wide freaking open. Dude. I was like sitting there going, what in the world?
Yeah.
How does that guy
That's a big difference between him and Kittle. Kittle's a great player, but Kittle isn't the route runner that Kelsey is.
He's not the receiver that Kelsey is.
No.
Kelsey's crazy. But, Kelsey's nowhere close to the inline blocker that George is either. George can block like a tackle.
And again, like with Travis Kelce should be like in the running of the highest paid non-quarterback in the league. But he's not because he's a tight end, and tight ends are like freaking discriminated against in the NFL. It is the strangest thing. But you could argue that in the last 20 years, no player outside of quarterbacks has had a bigger impact on the game than him and Gronk. And they just can't get paid.
Travis Kelce, if I saw him today, is, hey, bro, love you, you're great, but this crap about nobody picked us is a bunch of garbage. The Chiefs have been like the Chiefs have been like one of the betting favorites for like 5 years running or something. Everybody's picking you at all times. You can't play the disrespect card. I'm sorry.
I do got to say though, if the Eagles can't be the Chiefs, that's disheartening for the rest of the league. That Eagles team was as stacked as this team could be in the salary cap. They had no weaknesses. They're the best pass rush in the league, completely neutralized. They scored 35 points. It wasn't enough. That's disheartening for the rest of the league. Got to say.
Well, I'll tell you, I picked the Chiefs to win 35-31. My biggest motivating factor on picking them that to win that way is that they've won a Super Bowl and they already lost a Super Bowl. So it's like, you know what I mean? Once you've already lost a Super Bowl, the difference between winning and losing this game has got to be huge.
It was the fumble. It's true. But again, the Chiefs, as well as the Eagles played, Jalen Hurts played. He's gonna have to live with that fumble. He's gonna wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it. The rest
How about
of his
Sirianni on that one play on the sideline when they're deciding if it was going to be a turnover or not, and he's like starts motioning with his arm, and then Jalen like grabs his arm and puts it down. Like, dude, stop talking trash. It's like your little brother talking trash in a fight that you're gonna have to fight.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So Jalen Hurts is the one who's matured in that situation. You were right about Nick Sirianni. There's something off about him,
he's
man.
He's a clown, man.
But that being said, I feel like
tears in the anthem.
Agree. But that being said, I don't know if it's an organizational thing in Philly. What they're doing on offense works. That offense was not the reason they lost this game. Like they had no defense, or maybe no one has enough offense to keep pace with Patrick Mahomes right now. But damn,
they have two number one receivers. They have a first-round draft choice tight end. They've got a
damn good quarterback.
You said of the 5 all-pro offensive linemen, 2 of them are on their team. They've got 3 running backs. To me, if there's one element of Philly's team that's really underrated, it's Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, and Kenneth Gainwell. They all can do a bunch of things. They're all fast. They're all hard to tackle. Those guys are really, really good. So Philly.
It's a stacked team. It's impressive. And they're not going to be as good next year. Maybe the Niners can take their spot. Oh, there was another topic. Hold on. Another topic, and then we're going to get to the rest of the Super Chats. 2 words, Jawan Taylor, unless Jags re-sign him. He's a good player, too. Former first-round pick.
Yeah,
the one
big tackle.
I forgot to put one in. Okay. Hold on. Yeah, okay. I'll just say it right now. So we're all talking about the Niners and the Eagles as the contenders in the NFC.
Right.
Is there going to be a team that sneaks up on those two next year? Is there a dark horse third contender in the NFC?
I don't believe in Dallas. I don't believe
Me
in
neither.
Jerry Jones. I don't
Me
believe
neither.
in Kid. I don't believe in Mike McCarthy. Now McCarthy's calling plays. I don't believe in Dak Prescott. I don't believe in Dallas. So I'll put a line through Dallas.
I'm with you.
I think Dable and the Giants are probably that third team.
Interesting.
Because I do believe in Dable, and I do believe in the Giants seem like they're kind of on an uptick here. So I think they look like they're building something. Washington's a circus. Vikings, no. Lions still have Goff.
Green
Rodgers
Bay, no.
is probably going to leave Green Bay. The Bears are 2 years away from being 2 years away. Bucks with Jimmy.
Which is too bad, man. I feel like Justin Fields, if you put him on Philly, would be good. But, God, there's no team there. Okay, keep going.
There's no time.
Jimmy's
going to be in Tampa. So I think Tampa with Jimmy will
Is that your prediction?
Yeah, I think Tampa.
God,
that makes a lot of sense. Because they're going to try to
nowhere.
You know why? Because they're going to try to win and like develop their roster at the same time. So they're going to go Jimmy.
Can't wait for Mike Evans to say something publicly about Jimmy Garoppolo.
It could be Atlanta if Lamar goes there, and there's a lot of talk that Lamar may go to Atlanta. I think this is going to be the division with all the new quarterbacks. So I think Jimmy's with the Bucks. I think Derek Carr's with the Saints. I think Lamar is going to be with the Falcons. I don't know who's going to be in Carolina. It might be a draft choice.
I still don't feel like there's a contender in that division, though. I mean,
let's
say Lamar
Arizona.
goes.
Arizona's going to be a tire fire. Kyler's probably going to be out all of next year. Seattle's interesting. The Rams have cap problems. Yeah, I mean, I don't. I would say it's the New York Giants. It's the New York Giants.
Seattle. We'll see what Seattle does in the draft. If it's just Geno Smith and that's it, I'm not really concerned about them. But if they get some quarterback that they can, I don't know what they're gonna do. Any quarterbacks? How do you feel about Anthony Richardson? Is he gonna be
one of the greatest quarterback athletes I've ever seen in my life?
Athletes.
He's 6'3", he's 235. He throws well. He runs like a star running back.
And so my question is he a good enough runner that you could take him in round 1, like just based off rushing production?
Yep.
Yes.
He's freaky.
Here's the thing, though. Like
he might go
again.
10th. He might go 10th. He might. Yeah. Some people might see him as the next Mahomes.
Oh,
he throws well, and he doesn't have Mahomes' arm, but he's a way better runner than Mahomes. I'm talking about a dynamic runner.
Yeah, he is a dynamic runner. I just feel like, again, you're not going to beat Mahomes running the ball. You're just not. Although Jalen Hurts had 3 rushing touchdowns, he was great, but he had some big throws.
Here's the thing, though. I do think the best way to beat Mahomes is to dominate the time of possession. And Philly did that in this game.
Philly did.
Philly still didn't do it. Still didn't finish it.
They still scored 38. They score so fast. Even if you dominate time of possession, they score so fast. It's crazy, man. Trying to figure out how to beat them is...
I think the 2 things that have to be learned from this game are copy the rugby scrum.
Yep.
Go for it more on fourth down.
Yep.
Especially in the positive side of the field.
Yep.
And definitely, like, let's say from your own 40-yard line to their goal line, go for it on fourth down. If you don't want to go for it inside the 30, that's one thing. But if you get out to the 40-yard line, go for it. No more midfield punting on 4th and 2.
Thank you.
Adjust
when you do that, you're asking your defense to win the game. You're not gonna. You gotta win. Take it with your offense. Be aggressive.
You've got too much money spent on your offense to just put it all on your defense.
Thank you. And all the rules favor the offense. It's not 1997 anymore. Kyle and Mike. Giovanni Miller says if Kyle Shanahan is Andy Reid, it took 17 years for him to win a Super Bowl. So Kyle Shanahan in the Niners win the Niners Super Bowl 2034. 2034. How old will you be in 2034?
Oh, man. I don't think I'll be here in 2034.
Don't say that. 2.0 says, why does our QC obsessed want to emulate another team who blows 10-point leads in the Super Bowl? Is it a coincidence, or is he the reason these teams choke? I could be the reason the Niners choke. Although they didn't ask me for help, Philly. That was Vic Fangio over there. Scratch obsessed. Got you. The scrum is a penalty in the rules. Assist runner. It's fish and chips. Not supposed to assist the runner? Obviously not.
They've been using it. They've been doing it.
Black Pill Phil says Eagle will struggle next year. They're over the salary cap with $28 million in debt money, at least $25 million in restructured money, and 13 key free agents. I don't know if they'll struggle next year, but I don't think they'll be as good.
That's why you go after Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, because they won't be able to pay him.
Yes, Weekend Arrival 2.0 says RPO quarterbacks literally have to play perfectly and have the best roster in the league just to have a chance. Need to stay away from them. Draft another quick, accurate, smart, experienced quarterback to go with Purdy. Yeah, because, a lot of 7th-round picks winning Super Bowls this year. Now, again, nothing against Purdy, but you really telling me that Jalen Hurts was the reason they lost this game? Like 35 points on offense?
He was awesome.
I don't know. He was awesome.
He could have been the MVP even in the loss.
I think the problem is I think really what we're at right now in the NFL is that Patrick Mahomes is so much better than every other quarterback. It's unfair. I don't think he even really gets – I don't think people really fully appreciate how freaking good he is.
The Niners
Patrick
have a great defense. They had the Chiefs at home. Chiefs scored 40.
I was there. You were there. I watched it in person. It's the second time I've seen Patrick Mahomes in person. He's the best football player I've ever seen.
And he's in the prime. Here's the other thing, too. He's absolutely in the prime of his career. What you saw this year would be like the equivalent of Joe Montana in 1984.
Also, Travis Kelce is almost as breathtaking. Watching him run and get open, or just watching him, it's like quite
to me,
impressive.
The Niners window opens again when Reed hangs it up. Because when Reed hangs it up, I think Mahomes won't be as good.
And I think the NFL's loving this right now. I think the NFL wants the Chiefs. I think they need a dominant team. They love the Patriots. Tom Brady was a star. Tom Brady's gone. They need another. One thing about the NFL that's interesting, it's the biggest sport in the country by far. The players are not what you would call celebrities like they are in basketball. Like, who's famous in the NFL? Mahomes has a chance. So the NFL needs him. He's good for business for them.
I'll tell you one thing that I'd like to mention before we get out of here. Roger Goodell took the podium this week and said that the officiating's the best it's been in years.
What?
And that was when his speech from Arizona.
Best it's been it's not.
Excuse me, Roger. You're high. No, but the bottom line on this one is we've now seen Grant back-to-back Super Bowls where a flag came out that gave the win.
That was
to one team.
End of the game.
Last year it was Logan Wilson in a bullshit PI call. And this time it was James Bradbury in a bullshit defensive hold call. The only reason I'm not upset about it is because a bunch of idiot Eagle fans, in my mind, got their comeuppance.
Right.
But it's still bad for football because why are we having the biggest game decided by the refs and some arbitrary calls 2 years in a row.
It didn't used to be that way.
And
it didn't used to be that way. Remember when the Niners won the Super Bowl? They just mugged Michael Crabtree 3 times in a row, and people were like, yeah, I mean, you kind of have to expect that. That's what happens.
It always seems like it goes in the favor of like their biggest stars or biggest markets. Last year, it's like, it goes in favor of the Rams. This year, it goes in favor of Mahomes. You just said it. The whole they're looking for a poster boy post Brady,
and it's
suddenly
him.
Mahomes gets this favorable call. What if that call doesn't? I'm not saying the thing's fixed, but I hate the defensive spot foul as like everything's an automatic first down.
Yeah.
How about
Dude, defensive holding is a 5-yard penalty and an automatic first down?
Automatic first down?
Why?
That sounds like game manipulation ability.
Well, again, it's another rule that favors offense. Like, what? Are you kidding?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a rule that allows refs to like really change the game, right?
Really change the game instead of just 5 yards. And I just don't like that.
Offensive.
Think about it. Yeah. It's third and it's
third and forever. A mile and a half. Yeah.
And it's like some guy, grabs it. They have a chance to kind of mesh together inside of 5 yards. And suddenly they keep their arms kind of meshed for 6 yards. Oh,
yeah.
Bingo.
Okay. Yeah,
first down. I mean, that's just too. It lends itself. I'm not saying it's not on the level. I'm just saying that it lends itself to manipulation too much, and it doesn't feel right.
I agree.
And last year I thought the Bengals got screwed, and this year I kind of felt like the Eagles got screwed. And you don't want to be walking away from a game going one team got screwed. What if you're gonna play this like hands? We're gonna let them play. Then carry that through the entire game. Right. We see one of two things. They either let them play, and then here comes some ticky-tack flag late, or it's Niners-Ravens, and they let them play throughout the game, and then or they call flags
they call plays at the game, but then they swat at the end.
And then they swallow them at the end. They're like, we can't decide this,
Yeah.
Just be consistent.
Just be consistent. The game. Yeah. And I think that was the Eagles' gripe, is that they weren't. Right. You could even argue, I think, what maybe Niner fans noticed was once Purdy went out, all of a sudden, whole lot of penalties against the Niners. You could argue maybe the NFL didn't want, I'm not going to go full conspiracy theorist here, right? But maybe the NFL didn't want Josh Johnson in the Super Bowl. It's Josh Johnson. You're trying to market these people. He's not a star. He's not a star.
You know what's also kind of weird? Didn't you think it was weird that James Bradbury, instead of pushing back, totally owned that? I wonder.
Yeah, man.
Did James Bradbury make a little extra this weekend?
Oh, let's stop before we get totally deplatformed on YouTube. I'm not. I don't believe any conspiracy theory we just laid out there, but the NFL, these conversations go on a lot, and the NFL created it. It's their fault. Cody Walker's, and when he says that the officiating is better than it's ever been, that literally doesn't mean it's good officiating. That just means that it's always been bad, which it has.
Right.
Cody Walker says, late Chiefs comment, but they aren't unstoppable. The Bengals have their number for a reason. Do they? Shreddy Murphy says 2 years left, Super Bowl, BP not beating Chiefs. Kyle Shanahan botched Trey Lance. I don't know if anyone's beating the Chiefs. Chris Tallarico says the problem is that the SF are full step below their top tier teams. Cincinnati, KC, Philly are so far ahead of where SF is. SF needs to look at rebuilding, start with the head coach. Chris Tallarico is coming with the heat right here. I do feel like the Niners are a tier below, but they don't. But we'll see. I mean, it's one thing what they say publicly. It's another thing to see what they do.
13-4.
It's
they
true.
Just won 2 playoff games.
It's true. 2.0 says Hurts literally gave KC the ball and 7 points at a very critical moment. Hurts played as well as any RPO quarterback could, but still wasn't good enough. Who would have played better? Maybe if they had Justin Herbert over there. But you know what? They couldn't get Justin Herbert. It's not like the Niners who passed on Mahomes. This is the best they could do. I don't know.
Has a dual threat quarterback ever won?
It depends what you call
Steve
Patrick,
Young.
What you call Russell Wilson and Steve Young. But again, like Colin Kaepernick and Jalen Hurts played really well in the Super Bowl. 31 and 35 points. It's hard to blame them. Trade BP to the Cardinals. K1 ACL out for the year.
For what? What do you get? What do you want back?
Yeah, you're not trading. They're not going to trade Brock Purdy. Mahomes is Steph Curry and pads. No one has a chance. It feels like that sometimes. Feels like that sometimes. I mean, he was on one leg and you couldn't sack him.
And he ran 25 yards down the middle of the field in the fourth quarter to set up the game-winning field goal, and the wincing on the sidelines at the end of the second quarter, and then like I didn't even know he was gonna. I don't even know if he was gonna play in the second half, and then he's incredible.
He moves kind of slow to me, but it feels like everyone else moves slower. I don't know. It seems like he's playing on a whole different pace. Everything is so clear to him. If he makes every throw, he can see everything. He's so good. I don't understand. He's so good.
I think Chiefs did a nice job getting Kadarius Toney at the trade deadline too.
Yep.
Kadarius Toney had that huge return, and he's a good player. I don't know why he wasn't a good player with the Giants. He was great at Florida, and they just kind of recognized that. They're like, "Hey, he's a great player. Yeah, he sucked with the Giants. So what? Here's a 3rd or 4th round pick, and whatever they gave him. That wasn't. I think it was a 1st round pick that he was a 1st round pick."
Yeah, and it's like, does he suck, or is he just like, did you overdraft him and put him on a team without a creative Andy Reid type? Probably that. Right. Probably that. Yeah, absolutely. Doesn't mean that the Chiefs will give this Toney an extension because they're freaking brutal about that. But on a rookie deal, yeah, come on over here.
Look at. I mean, there's a number of teams that have done that and found some great players. How about Seattle and Marshawn Lynch getting him out of Buffalo?
That's true. Last one, then we're out. The show is over. 2.0 says, you think 2.0 hates Jalen Hurts? Not hates him, but he's on it. You think Hurts played better than Mahomes? No one plays better than Mahomes. Mahomes rating better, I don't know. Only one Hurts and one Mahomes, but I would rather have poor man's Mahomes and Hurts. You'd rather have, interesting. Would you rather have Jalen Hurts or Brock Purdy moving? Is that Brock Purdy, poor man's Mahomes? That's kind of a stretch.
You know, it's funny.
It's kind of a stretch.
Do you know that Brock Purdy and Jalen Hurts are literally the exact same size? Except, I think either one of them's like, I think Hurts is like. I
can't believe
Hurts is 3 pounds.
I gotta see Jalen Hurts in person. I gotta see, because I've seen Brock Purdy in person, and he looks like me. So I gotta see what Jalen Hurts looks like. You've seen Brock in person. He doesn't look like a power lifter, although he does have.
But he carries a lot of weight in his legs, so I would say he's probably.
But again, he's not moving the pile in that scrum like Jalen Hurts.
I know. Well, that's the thing. Jalen Hurts is Jalen Hurts has leg strength like a running back.
Crazy. He's built like a running back, too. Chris Celerico says 113 games, 2 straight NFC championship games, and they would have been blown up in the Super Bowl. They aren't good enough. Shanny is the common denominator. I do think there's no.
Chris just wants Shanny out.
I agree with him. But again, there's no shame in being the third best team.
You want Shanny out?
Well,
right now?
It's too late. They missed the coaching cycle. And I talked about this a couple weeks ago. I would have traded him and hired Steichen. But it's over. I do feel like if he could show that he could get over the hump, I'm with him. But the reason that they haven't gotten over the hump is partially him. So I'm concerned. The common denominator is the quarterbacks not being healthy enough. He hasn't gotten the quarterback position right. It's year 7. So we'll see what happens. But, yeah, I mean, they're not going to trade
You don't
Shanahan
see him
now.
Kind of like an Andy Reid situation where he's clearly a proven offensive success. His offense produces points, and he hasn't gotten the right combination of health, quarterback play, talent.
That's let me answer this question. It's a fair question.
But I do agree with you that he shares responsibility for falling short. It's not like he's not been a part of the equation. He has been.
Yeah, he's very good, but I think his arrogance. He wants his scheme to be the star, and it is the star. When the quarterback does well, he takes the credit. When the quarterback does poorly, the quarterback gets the blame. And I think the difference between him and Andy Reid is Andy understands that the quarterback is the star. And he always had Donovan McNabb and kept him healthy for the most part. Now he has Patrick Mahomes. I feel like Kyle's always drawn to people like mid-round picks, Kirk Cousins, Brock Purdy, because he doesn't see the quarterback as the star of the operation. It's like the processing chip in the computer. It's just a chip. You're a processor. But everything is made possible by Kyle. He doesn't need Patrick. He passed on Patrick Mahomes. He passed on Jalen Hurts. Tom Brady called him and was like, no, we're good. He just wants, Brock Purdy, Kirk Cousins, someone who's cheap and doing what Kyle tells him to do. And I feel like that mentality gets him in trouble at the end of the season because you're going against star quarterbacks with great old lines and you have Brock Purdy and Mike McGlinchey, Spencer Burford, and Jake Brendel. I'm sorry. You're great, though, Kyle. And you keep getting to the finish line, but are you going to get past it? I don't know. I think not. Unless he changes. Unless he matures in a way. I guess Andy Reid did. I don't know. I don't know.
I see him as Reed. I see him as Reed. And there is a little bit of an evolution. There's also some responsibility that Reed needed to take for falling short many of those times. Kyle needs to take for falling short. But maybe because I look at things personnel wise, I just don't think the Niners have had all their personnel rolling and at the right time. They're either, like, give you an example. I think they would have beat the Chiefs if they had DJ Jones healthy, but they didn't. And Damian Williams, is that what it was, or Wilson?
Yeah.
And he had a great Super Bowl. I mean, and the Chiefs ran the ball with way better than teams ran the ball when DJ was in there. They didn't have him. So I don't know. And I blame Harbaugh on the.
I don't think the Niners are going to beat the Chiefs with 20
Ravens
points
stuff,
in that game. Sorry.
What's that?
I just don't think the Niners are going to beat the Chiefs with 20 points in that game. What, they scored 20? They lost 31-20?
And Shanahan blew that in my mind going into the first half. He wasted time that they easily could have gotten points.
At the end of the first half.
Also, they didn't get the ball to Deebo Samuel nearly enough in that game. He touched the ball twice, I think, in the second half. At halftime, Deebo Samuel was the favorite to win the Super Bowl MVP.
It's true.
And he touched the ball twice in the second half.
It's true. Glory says it's not Shanny, it's the O-line. Hey, Shanny has a say in every single roster decision. I mean, it's not like he's the coach and he's trying to get John Lynch to give him certain players. Like, John runs everything through Kyle. Kyle thinks he can scheme around what he's got on the offense. Kyle loves Mike McGlinchey.
I think it's not the O-line. It's the quarterback.
I mean, if they could keep Brock Purdy healthy, maybe who knows how far they go this year. But they couldn't.
Yeah.
They can't keep anyone healthy. At a certain point, it's not bad luck when every quarterback gets hurt. I don't know. I mean, you can't blame the offensive line every time because it's a tight end sometimes. It's an unblocked rusher sometimes. But it's Kyle, and it's going back to Washington. It's RG3. At a certain point, Kyle needs to show that he can keep a quarterback healthy for more than a year or two at a time. And I know it's a violent position, but still, dude.
Maybe you don't put 5 eligibles. Maybe you leave somebody in the backfield.
That's another thing. Kyle loves showing his genius by putting all the eligibles out there. You can't. There's nothing genius about pass protection. It doesn't make you look smart. Brian Baldinger isn't going to go on and on for 2.5 minutes about your max protection scheme. He's not. But it's important. He will talk about your pass patterns, though. Anyway, thanks for watching the show. It was a long one. Larry, appreciate your time as always.
Good stuff, man.
See you guys.